All right, everybody, I will be calling this meeting to order. So welcome to the fourth meeting of the Community and Protective Services Committee. I'd like to welcome everybody in chambers and online. The City of London is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenapewauk, and Attawandaron. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. The City of London is currently home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit today. As representatives of the people of the City of London, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communications supports for meetings upon request. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact cpsc@london.ca or dial 519-661-2489, extension 2425. I'd like to recognize members of the committee. I have Councillor McAllister to my right, Councillor Trusso online, and myself. And I would just let the members know that if anybody needs to leave, we would lose quorum and this meeting will end. I'd also like to recognize visiting members. I have Councillor Rahman to my right, Councillor Cuddy to my right, and the Deputy Mayor Lewis to my right as well. And I believe Councillor Hillier is online and Councillor Pelosa is also online. So welcome. All right. I will look for any disclosures of interest. I have none. Okay, that moves us to consent. I have two pull requests. That's items 2.10, the amendment to fees and charges bylaw for the Honk Mobile, and 2.11, adult entertainment body rub attendant licensing information report. So I'd be looking to committee for any other items to be pulled. I see none. Okay, looking for a mover and a seconder for items 2.1 through to 2.9. Moved by Councillor McAllister, seconded by Councillor Trusso. Before we go to any kind of comments or questions on the report, I would like to go to Mr. Yeoman. He'd like to speak to 2.2 urban forest health status of pests and pathogens. I will go to you now, Mr. Yeoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity just to speak briefly. We have a fairly comprehensive report that we've put forward. It's not the happiest report, unfortunately, about some challenges and threats we're facing with our urban forest. In particular, we're looking at three very particular threats. The first is beech leaf disease, which impacts beech trees, which are a major component of a lot of our woodlands. We think it's a small worm that's actually affecting them. It really restricts the flow of nutrients throughout the tree, really causing a lot of challenges. Of course, we'll be removing a lot of street trees associated with that. Beech aren't a huge number of street trees, but it'll be a bit of a component. The next is oak wilt, which is not currently present in the city, but we think it is just a matter of time. It's sort of triangulated around London. This is a fungus that really impacts red oaks in particular and is pretty catastrophic. And it really sort of has a couple-year decline window once it actually is in place. And the last is the Asian longhorn beetle, which has been documented in Toronto. We haven't seen any yet here in the city, but we are working with the Canada Food Inspection Agency quite a bit. It really does target maples. It feeds on them. A large portion of the city's urban forest is maple trees, and that would be really challenging and problematic for our city. So in terms of what we're doing, these, of course, have a lot of ecological, financial, and social risks that I think everyone can appreciate. With this report, we're kicking off some public education that we'll be doing, really looking to have as many people involved as possible, keeping an eye on their backyard trees and trees that are in public spaces as well. We'll be doing a fair bit of industry education as well, working with our partners because they're often our first line of defense as well too. So with the active monitoring, if anyone does see any concerns, they're welcome to email us at trees@london.ca and we'll get out and do an inspection. We have money in our existing budgets to respond to beech leaf disease from what we know so far. The other threats, though, are a financial risk, and we'll be talking more about those in budget monitoring if we hear of anything more as it comes forward. The last thing, too, is we'll be looking for senior government funding if we do actually have any sort of outbreaks, and we'll be looking to our industry partners to help manage. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Yeoman. All right, looking to committee for items 2.1 to 2.9 for any questions or comments. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, and through the chair, while we're on it, 2.2, thank you for the update, Mr. Yeoman. I'm just curious in terms of getting this information out to the public, will we be utilizing the city social media? Like, how will we get this information out to the public? Because I'm sure, it'd be nice if we get more eyes on it, and obviously if we can have some kind of reporting structure, so if the public see it, they can report into your team.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Yeoman.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, we definitely be doing quite a heavy social media blitz coming forward. We'll also be trying to leverage any engagement opportunities that we have as well with our existing staff resources, trying to get out to the public with information, images, and things like that about things that they can look at as well. We're trying to also have some things like stickers and tattoos that people can take that will sort of identify things as well to sort of keep it top of mind as we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Moving on to a different item. This is 2.6, and I'm just wondering, with the new staff complement that was approved, will that make any changes to the master plan, or how is that being worked in?
Thank you, Mr. Yeoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it won't necessarily affect the master plan directly. However, we have operationalized the budget allocation that council's provided. We've got 2 staff that are being hired up right now. We're working on a job description for the other staff as well, and we'll have Gibbons online in March as well too, which will be great news for the community.
Councillor.
Thank you. Just jumping around here a bit because we've got a bunch of the consent ones in here. And then the other one, in terms of the consultant engineering for the Damien's Sports Park, I'm just wondering, obviously with the $700,000 that's being asked, is this the only consultant request that we can anticipate, or would there potentially be another one?
Thank you, Mr. Yeoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the consultant award that's before you is for both the public engagement and design, but also construction administration for when we actually get there as well. So we actually will have a tender once the work's been identified after the community consultations and the design is finalized. That should probably be at a value that'll be administratively awarded, but it'll be a very substantive project and a great addition to the southwest of the city in particular.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, and through the chair. And sorry, following along with that, in terms of the public engagement that will take place, what exactly are we looking for the public? Or is this kind of, we've predetermined the facilities that we're looking for, or is it more an open forum in terms of input from the public as to what we're looking for?
Thank you. Mr. Yeoman.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair. So there will be some design alternatives and possibilities that will be discussed with the community. We will be doing some blue sky discussions as well as we engage with user groups and things like that. In particular, though, the Parks and Rec Master Plan does have a very aggressive target for sports fields, for things like soccer, which we anticipate being a heavy portion of this site.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. Appreciate all the answers. And I have no more questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking to other members of committee? Okay, visiting members. Oh, I have Councillor Pelosa. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was just a follow-up in regards to the 2.6 being the Parks and Rec Master Plan Annual Report. I had spoke to you ahead of time as per page 49, connecting people in nature, just the staff's report notes coordinating improvements to the Springbank Park Arboretum in partnership with the Murray Hunter Foundation, just making sure that staff could correct it. That's the Julia Hunter Foundation. Murray is the father and absolutely the one we've been meeting with, but just a typo, I'm sure, just making sure that we respect the donors and that could be corrected.
Thank you, Councillor. I did speak with the clerk on that one, and I do see that staff is nodding their heads, so I'll just look to you if you want to make a comment, or you can take that feedback. Okay, good. All right, Councillor, you can go ahead, Councillor Pelosa, if you have anything else.
Thank you. My other one was just in the regards to the same report, looking to see if staff could just, I know the answer, that if they could just clarify it within the report for the public. It said that we installed live streaming services in our arenas. We absolutely did. We used Live Barn. Just if that is clarified in the public report for residents know that it's not just people logging on to watch small children learning to skate, that it actually is a paid service and we know who's watching them while they're playing hockey.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm getting nods here from staff as well. All right. I still see you have your hand up, Counselor. I just wanted to go back in case, okay, you're done? Okay. I will go to Counselor Rahman next.
Thank you, and through you, my question pertains to the 2024 administrative amendments to the traffic and parking bylaw. So this item is introduced today for discussion, and in it, there's a number of consent pieces that are delegated authority that staff have put in place, and I want to say thank you for the consideration given around some of these in my ward at least, highly discussed areas. One of the challenges I'm hearing from residents is ongoing concerns around St. Andre Bessette Catholic Elementary School, secondary school, sorry, and with specifically around parking on the side streets associated with the school. Residents are not understanding why they would need to go through the process of asking for parking to be removed in the area when the issue is really constrained to when students are in school and that blocking of both sides of the road at that time. So when this report came up and it addresses some of those concerns on streets like Fox Ridge, it has been quite a discussion this morning with my constituents. So just wondering if you might be able to comment on that process, how we arrive at which streets and how much of that intersection to be able to impact and when it gets to the point where we have to get a petition started in order to remove parking.
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. McCray.
Thank you. Through the chair, parking on residential streets is largely driven by neighborhood and community input. And so that'll prompt staff to review conditions. Certainly if there's an operational or safety concern, change will be made by staff. But otherwise, it's really left to the preference of the property owners along the street. And so that is the protest whereby a ballot is sent out and a majority consensus can dictate the parking arrangement on the street. And staff are happy to initiate that if we get a sense that there's a desire amongst the community.
Thank you, Counselor.
Yeah, thanks. I think the real concern for residents right now in the area is around bringing snowplows in. And so their concern is when it hinders operational movement for the City of London, why wouldn't the city come in and do that in place of residents having to come in and say, hey, this is difficult to get a plow down this street. We can only get one car down because of the tight constraints of the road, plus the cars parked along the side, and mostly they're student cars that are parked there. So I hear you, and I just want to be, forthcoming that this is an ongoing concern, and residents are trying to find a way around, and so literally and figuratively, and in this discussion. So I do think that there might be more opportunity for us to look at this, but appreciate the report that's in front of us, the opportunity to discuss that today at your committee.
Thank you, Counselor. Looking to other members of the members of the committee or visiting members for any comments or questions. I see none. Okay, let's call the question.
I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 3-0.
Okay, that brings us to the next area of the report, that's scheduled items. I have one. I have a delegation request. And this is for the Environmental Stewardship and Action Community Advisory Committee, the third report of the Environmental Stewardship and Action Advisory Committee. So I have the delegate ready, so I would just actually a second. All right, so we're going to give 5 minutes to the delegation, and just state your name, and then I'll let you know when you're ready to go.
Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Samuels. I'm the chair of the Environmental Stewardship and Action Community Advisory Committee. Always good to be back here at Community and Protective Services. If I sound a little...
Just a second.
Yep.
I just want to give you your time when you're ready to go. So we got your name?
Yep.
You have 5 minutes starting now.
Ready to go. I'm going to use my full 5 minutes today. Apologies if I sound a little strange. I had a dentist appointment this morning. My mouth is still a little frozen, but we're going to work through it. All right, what you'll see on your agenda is the report from our advisory committee meeting from February. I just want to walk you through a few of the items that are contained within there and orient you also to the added agenda attachments. There was an error in attaching some of our reports, so those made it into the added agenda. First, in our report, you'll see that we held an information session about green development standards. We had invited leading experts on green development standards, recognizing that that is something that the city is taking a look at this year. And you'll see the presentation materials included with the report. They include representation from the Clean Air Partnership, from Doug Terry Homes, a net zero home builder, from the London Society of Architects, and the training coordinator from a local carpentry union focusing on mass timber. We had a really good discussion. Councillors Troso and Frank attended, as well as many city staff. I learned a fair bit about what goes into green development standards, and we have requested that a video recording of that session at our meeting be made available by request through the clerk's office so it can be used for future reference. We also received a presentation from a local interest group called Seniors for Climate Action Now, interested in how they can work with the city to help climate information reach elderly people in our community. And what you'll see, and these are the largest attachments in our reports, are reports on the Mobility Master Plan and on the Climate Emergency Action Plan. On the Mobility Master Plan, we received requests for feedback from city staff as well as members of council. And what you'll see included in our report is really responding to those requests for information. We tried to center our feedback around our committee's mandate, which concerns the Climate Emergency Action Plan. Overall, we recommend that the Mobility Master Plan proceeds on schedule. We're not seeking to delay this or create any impediments to meeting our timelines for the DC study. However, we are concerned with a lack of clarity in terms of how the plan aligns with London's greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. And we have requested certain details be included in the next report on the MMP to come back to council. Our report identifies what we perceive to be some knowledge gaps surrounding this MMP, recognizing that this is a major planning study that will be lasting for many decades. And we're not exactly sure how the plan is being developed. From the draft maps that we've reviewed, we're not confident that those maps are going to align with the vision. And frankly, we don't really understand how to interpret the vision statement. It's a lot of aspirational language, and it doesn't commit the city to specific metrics. We had similar concerns about the mode share target. Overall, what we are aiming to do is share feedback from the community. We went out and consulted. We attended a number of the information sessions. I was actually really pleased by the attendance and the work by city staff at those Mobility Master Plan outreach sessions. And so we're not seeking to undermine any of that work. We just want to have greater clarity as this plan moves forward, particularly around the climate implications, and also recognizing that 2050 is a long ways away, and there's going to be other opportunities to adjust and change course as needed as resources move around. So just having some clarity around what future councils might be able to change in this mobility plan. Ultimately, what we want to see is less people driving cars. And we think that it's very important that as we are shifting mobility in terms of capital planning projects, we also need to communicate about mobility in a good way. What is it going to take for Londoners to see themselves in the MMP, to understand why this matters? And so we'd love to see more resources put into the communication side of that mode shift. Finally, what you will see in the end of our report is our Climate Emergency Action Plan report. This is related to the climate emergency adaptation work that is ongoing. We've also provided some recommendations for city staff as to how we can communicate with the public about climate-related information. If you have any questions about the contents of that report, I'd be happy to take those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samuels. You had 38 seconds to go. Okay, so I will be looking to committee to move the report. Oh, Councillor Trussell, sorry, I didn't see you there. Okay, I need a seconder. Councillor McAllister. Okay, looking to members of committee first for any questions or comments. Councillor Trussell.
My motion was going to say, it was going to go into more detail. I guess the clerk can put it in the proper language. We've received this delegation. We're going to forward it to, do we need to say exactly who we're forwarding it to or just to the team? And I also want to acknowledge receipt from a letter on the same agenda item from the youth advisory group. And I would just like to see all those points acknowledged in the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Just conferred with the clerk. The motion includes those two items already, and it does include receiving the report. I can go to the clerk if you want more clarification, but from what I'm seeing, your request should be in there. Counselor?
Thank you.
Sorry, Counselor?
I don't see it, but I'll take the clerk's word at it that it's all in there. It's pretty routine.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, looking to other members of committee. Okay, visiting members. Let's call the question.
Trosso votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 3-0.
Okay, moving on to item 210 for items for direction. We're on items for direction now. There was, just a second. All right, so there's a revised motion for 210, just in addition. It was circulated to members of committee, so I would be looking to members of committee to move that motion with the revised section and looking for a seconder as well. Moved by Councilor McAllister. Seconder? Okay, I'll second that. All right, let's go to members of committee.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, could you just read out the revised motion since only members of committee saw it?
I can.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'll read that for you. So that on the recommendation of the Deputy City Manager, Housing and Community Growth, the following actions be taken with respect to the staff report dated February 18th, 2025, related to an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw for Honk Mobile. A, that the proposed bylaw as appended to the above noted staff report be introduced at the Municipal Council meeting to be held on March 4th, 2025 to amend the various fees and charges bylaw to include a transaction fee of 35 cents for the city-approved mobile parking fee vendor Honk Mobile, Inc. And this is the revised part, Part B, Civic Administration be directed to bring forward a bylaw to the Municipal Council meeting to be held on March 4th, 2025 to delegate to the Director, Municipal Compliance, the authority to approve amending agreements with Honk Mobile, Inc. for changes to program fees. Okay, are you okay with that, Councillor? Yeah, okay. Looking to committee members first. I have Councillor Trosso first. Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you, and through the chair. And I want to raise a couple of questions about this. And I did speak to the author. What I'd really like to know is why such a large increase? I mean, when you say, well, it's a dime, it's just a dime. It doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're going from 25 to 35 in terms of percentages, that's a lot more. So my first concern is that this is a large increase to absorb all at once, and I'd like to know what the justification is for the increase. It really was not stated in the staff report. and I did discuss this with staff, and I'm still not satisfied that we've received an adequate explanation for why we're getting such a really relatively large increase. So I'll stop there for now and get a response to that before I continue.
Thank you, Counselor. I can go to Mr. Katolik.
Thank you, and through the chair, just by way of background, back in 2016, Municipal Council entered into an agreement with Honk Mobile, Inc. to provide a technological solution to allow for an app to pay for parking, both on-street parking and then also in our municipal parking lots. Honk has been very successful in working with the municipality, and they are now working with a number of different municipalities across Ontario and also educational institutions. So the 35-cent transaction fee does not impact the municipality because it is actually a fee that is charged to the user of the app. And I'll just provide a list of other municipalities and educational institutions that also have contracts with Honk Mobile, Inc. and are charging the 35-cent fee. Western University, Fanshawe College, Kitchener, Guelph, Oakville, Toronto, Brampton, Conestoga College, Brock University, Niagara Falls, Welland, Whitby, Wasaga Beach, Cobourg, Kingston, and Gananoque. Honk Mobile, Inc. is not the only type of app that provides this type of parking service. There are other competitors in the field. For example, Pay by Phone is another app that provides the same type of service. Their transaction fee is 50 cents. Passport is another app. Their transaction fee is 35 cents. Park Mobile, $2 per transaction. The 25-cent fee has not been increased since 2016, and we are confident that with this increase, Honk will continue to provide citizens of London and our staff exceptional service in terms of providing parking services.
Thank you, Mr. Katolik. Counselor.
Yeah, and all due respect, that didn't really answer my question, which is what's the justification for such a large percentage increase at this time?
Thank you, Counselor. I'll go to staff for the justification.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. The justification is that inflation and technological improvements allow Honk Mobile, Inc. to put codes into the app to provide for reduced parking at a moment's notice. So they provide exceptional service. And we did not do this in isolation without looking at other municipalities and educational institutions that Honk provides services for. Gone are the days that people carry around toonies and quarters and loonies in their pockets to pay for parking.
Thank you, Mr. Katolik. Counselor.
Through the chair, I don't think we're at the point yet where everybody, I think the assumption here through the chair is that everybody has the data. And I do think, and I've raised this before with respect to this exact application, I do believe that there are certain equity considerations. And quite frankly, I think it's a stretch to say gone is the day where people don't carry change, but I'm not going to debate that with staff right now. My next question through the chair is there any room for negotiation here and maybe phasing it in? And what would happen if we didn't just accept this outright?
Thank you, Counselor. Going to staff. Any room for negotiation or if we didn't accept the increase?
Through the chair, this 10-cent increase is in line with other municipalities and in line with other educational institutions. We did not enter into high-level negotiations with this very successful mobile app provider. Obviously, if they came in with a higher increase than other municipalities, definitely we would negotiate. But And I know I'm repeating myself, 35 cents is very reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Katolik. Counselor?
Yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to be supporting this increase right now, and I just don't see the point of asking further questions. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I have, before I go to the Deputy Mayor, just one more call for visiting members, or sorry, members of the committee. Okay, Deputy Mayor, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I want to thank staff for bringing this forward. After 9 years, it's not reasonable to expect that the rate is going to remain the same. I'm going to say I disagree very strongly with Councillor Trussow that this is a large increase. While it may be percentage-wise, it is not in the raw numbers. It is bringing the price in line and still at the bottom end, frankly, of the offerings from other service providers and what's happening in other municipalities. I will also say, and I say this respectfully, but I reject the premise that somebody who is able to pay for fuel, maintenance, car insurance, and is paying for parking isn't going to have data to be able to pay for their Honk Mobile. I just don't think that that's an equity lens that's being accurately applied here, given the cost that's quoted frequently and including around submissions on the MMP around what it costs to operate a motor vehicle. I don't think 10 cents is at all unreasonable, and I appreciate staff bringing this forward and getting this done so that we can continue, because I will say Honk has been a very productive partner with us, and certainly we saw, particularly during the pandemic and after the pandemic, their willingness to partner on codes like the core code so that we could see some downtown economic recovery. But that's the kind of technological advancement that we didn't have at the beginning that is going to drive a requirement in the user fees going up slightly. And so I'm very supportive of this, and hopefully we'll see this get through council quickly and we can get those amendments in place with the agreement and continue to provide this service for Londoners. Although I will say, Chair, I will agree with Councillor Trussow. I still keep a couple dollars in change in my console in my car, and once in a while, those coins in the meter are actually a better option than Honk, especially if I'm going to be a very short period of time. So I don't think the coin is completely gone. And if anybody wants to come down to the councilor's parking garage after the meeting and count how many coins are in my console, there will see that it is not zero.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have Councillor Pelosa next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know Deputy Mayor Lewis and I had just had recently a conversation about how much we both use Honk with or without a core parking code. Question through you to Mr. Katolik or the appropriate staff. Should council decline the request of 25 cents to 35-cent increase, what could potentially happen with the Honk app, as it is the only app we are currently using across the city?
Thank you, Councillor. That question is similar to the last one, but it's posed a little bit differently. So I will go to Mr. Katolik for what could come next if we declined.
Through the chair, that would have to be something that we would discuss with Honk based on council's decision.
Thank you. Councillor?
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to highlight that this is the app that we've rolled out that I would say has been very successful and a good partner with the city, and just concerned if there's a delay or a declinal of what it might mean for actually servicing Londoners and their parking needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking to both members of committee and visiting members. Anybody who would like to speak again or has not spoken? I have none. Okay, let's call the question.
Costa votes no.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 2-1.
Okay. Next item is 211, Adult Entertainment Body Rub Attending Licensing Information Report. So I would need a member of the committee to move and second an item or I believe that there is possibly an amendment, so just looking for members of committee. For the recommendation from the report too, anybody to move or second?
I'll move the report.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor McAllister. Looking for a seconder. Okay, I'll second that. All right, looking to members of committee. Councillor Trosso.
Thank you very much, and through the chair. I think I'll just start by putting my motion to refer this back to staff on the floor and see if that gets a second. Or should I debate this first and then we'll come to that?
If you could, Councillor, just give us your reasoning for the referral.
The reasoning for the referral is it's come to my attention that the actual stakeholders here, in terms of the agencies that are serving women in this area, we're not consulted about this, and you do have 2 letters in the file that just came in this morning. One from Jennifer Dunn, and also one from Jesse Rogers. Those were sent to the CPSC email, not in time for the added, but then again, the added, anyway, I guess my question is, why were these groups, particularly these 2 groups, not consulted about this in advance, as they claim in their letter?
Thank you, Councillor. I would need a seconder before we can move forward. I just wanted you to state your reasoning for your amendment. I'm just going to look to committee for a seconder, potential seconder. Last call. All right, Councillor, we don't have a seconder for your report, but you can speak to the main motion.
If I understand it, Chair, I'm not getting a second for the deferring this back to Civic Administration. Is that correct?
You're not getting a seconder for the referral. That's correct.
Okay. And has may I ask the clerk, well, this came in the last hour, but have people had the opportunity to read through the chair, the communications from Jennifer Dunn and Jesse Rogers?
I wouldn't be able to speak to that, Councillor.
Okay, well, I'm going to be voting no on the staff recommendation, because I do believe that, given the interest in this issue, and given the fact that these 2 agencies, LAWC and ANOVA, are well known to the city as having an interest in this matter, I'm having a difficult time understanding why they were not consulted before this went on to the agenda, and maybe staff can answer that?
I will go to staff, Mr. Katolik.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. By way of background, Civic Administration is always in a continuous improvement mode with respect to reviewing council's bylaws. Back in 2017, we did a very similar review of this category within our business licensing bylaw, and we consulted widely throughout the municipality in terms of all the community agencies that have an interest in this category. We consulted with owners, attendants of these premises, and we had several public participation meetings. This report before you today is the initial report that indicates that should council give direction, we will consult with these agencies, we will consult with our partners, we will consult with other municipalities that for numerous years have a business licensing category looking at attendance of body rub parlors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katolik. Counselor.
Through the chair then, I just want to read a little bit of Jesse Rogers' letter, since there's a question as to whether people have seen it. She says at the end, and I won't read the whole thing, but what is proposed so far is not in alignment with the city's strategic plan and puts the onus and responsibility on women, gender diverse, and trans people rather than the operators of licensed body rub parlors. She's asking for the committee to send this back to staff as per my deferral motion request, which did not get a second. The other one is very similar. So at this point, I think it's premature to go to a public participation meeting on this. The way the motion is drafted, and I really want to ask the other members of this committee to not vote in favor of it, because if council approves the motion as it's drafted, then it would be a decided matter of council, which would, in essence, create a situation where the public participation meeting would be limited to what's on the face of this motion. And I think I agree that we should have a public participation meeting at some point, but it should give people the opportunity to talk about, number one, other options, and number two, talk about the possibility of eliminating this as a licensing category. So I think there are two major flaws with the motion on the floor. Number one, I think it really should have been circulated last week to the interested stakeholders. I'm really disappointed that did not happen. I think that's a flaw. And number two, the way it's drafted, I think would push us into a procedural corner that we might want to avoid, because there might be other options besides what's in this particular bylaw. So I would urge people vote against this. And I'm really disappointed that we're not sending this back to staff for further consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm going to pass the chair over to my second chair, to Councilor McAllister, recognizing me.
Okay, recognizing I have the chair, go ahead, Councilor Ferrer.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm hearing what Counselor Trusso is saying, and I wasn't in support of a referral just because I don't want staff to have to do a whole bunch of work again. But I do hear what Counselor Trusso is saying with respect to some of the stakeholders, specifically Innova. So I'd like to move a motion that is not a referral, but is to have civic administration be directed to consult with the stakeholders with respect to this matter and report the findings at the CPSC meeting coinciding with the future public participation meeting. So it would be a direction for staff to consult with those stakeholders before we bring that item back for the public participation meeting.
Okay.
Point of order.
Looking for a seconder. Sorry. Oh, sorry, you had a point of order. I have to deal with that first. Go ahead, Councilor Trusso.
I think the motion is fundamentally flawed because if we wait for the consultation, if that happens when this is coming back for the in conjunction with the public participation meeting, then the public participation notice is going to go out based on the narrower framework. And I think it would be important when we do have a public participation meeting, so we only have to have it once, that that it have all the possible options on the table. So that's why I'd rather see this broken up, and that's why I don't think the way this was just framed is valid.
Okay, well, I'm going to rule it in order. You can challenge that if you want, but I'll allow what Councilor Ferrer has put forward.
Thank you. I don't have a seconder, but I do see Councilor Pelosi with her hand up.
I will second it to allow for discussion. So we'll go to I have to go to committee members first. We do have the motion on the floor that Councilor Ferrer has put forward. So looking for other committee members who'd like to speak to that first. I'd like to speak to it, but I'm currently chairing it. I'll just speak if that's okay from the chair. I appreciate what Councilor Ferrer has put forward. I do think consultation is required, but I'd also like to note that with a public participation meeting, I don't think that precludes any of these agencies from coming forward and making their positions known. This allows, through the public participation meeting, for members of the public, for the agencies. Everyone has an opportunity to speak to this. It also, I don't think, does set us on that course. I think that there is still time if through the course of this discussion, we want to change direction, we of course can. We also have the ability to quash whatever comes out of this. So if council decides as a whole that it doesn't like the direction things are going, we do also have the ability to stop it there. I'll leave my thoughts on that there. I'm looking to see if there are other council committee members. I see Councillor Ferrero would like to go next, and I do note that Councillor Pelosa is also on the list, but I'm just going to committee members and the Deputy Mayor as well. Go ahead, Councillor Ferrero.
Thank you, Councillor. Exactly what you said. We're just getting, ensuring that we have all stakeholders' input involved, and when the next cycle comes, we can decide how to move forward from there. So I do believe that this is a middle ground from what Councillor Trosa was originally moving and from what was requested, from what the staff recommendation is. So I do appreciate Councillor McAllister seconding the motion, and I hope that we can get support on committee. And once the next cycle comes in, we can have the option to negotiate and deliberate that. And then I'm basically looking for all the information before we make that decision. So that's why I moved the motion. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, you've used 1 minute of your time, Councillor Ferreira. I'm not, okay, Councillor Trosa, you are a member of the committee. You can go next if you'd like.
I really want to hear what Councillors Pelosa and Lewis have to say, so may I defer for a few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go to Councillor Pelosa first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. As to Councillor Trousdale's points, my concern is, as the past chair of CAPS, that fundamentally flawed, that if you would like to know what staff learns and what the agencies would like to contribute, if you tie it at the same time as a public participation meeting, it all comes at once, and perhaps you get the staff report after you've done the public participation meeting. And then if you change something procedurally, you need to go back and host another public participation meeting, realizing sometimes these topics are very traumatic for people coming forward to speak to us and speak with us. Those are my main concerns about procedurally how it will fall, and we gain information at the same time we're trying to hear from the public. Also going to flag that members of the committee did receive the correspondence. Not everyone did. So I will certainly reach out to the agencies or the clerk to make sure that the correspondence that you received can be part of the public agenda for council, for we can all receive that information and learn from it, which might help inform our decision-making process going forward. A question through you to the appropriate staff of, with the motion on the floor, the original motion of staff being sent to engage, of what, realizing sometimes there is a long leg between council saying, yes, hold a public participation meeting, and those meetings actually being held at committee. Looking through you to staff to see what their timeline would be of engaging with some of the member partner agencies in the interim prior to a PPM.
Looking to staff in terms of the timeline for engagement.
Thank you for the question. And through the presiding officer, the earliest we would be back at a public participation meeting is Q3 of this year. And it's somewhat of a given that when we're doing larger reviews, such as this one, in terms of a category within business licensing, we most definitely consult with the industry and with community groups and bring back an options report and together with a draft bylaw for public consideration, and then bring back subsequent reports should council direct us to implement the bylaw.
Okay, do you have follow-up questions, Councillor Pelosa?
No, just that was of use that we understand the options report with the draft bylaws and the timeline of this report. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Ferrari, you have your hand up.
I do. After the comments from the Councillor Pelosa and the options report, do we need to have that in this motion to give direction for that, or would it suffice of the discussion here with the motion as it is?
Okay, looking to staff, go ahead.
Through Mr. Presiding Officer, that's a given for all bylaw reviews we do within business licensing categories.
Okay, you're all good, Councillor Ferrer. Okay, looking to the Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. So I appreciate where colleagues' concerns lay around this, and that you don't want to be, steered into one path forward only. I think sometimes, though, we are our own worst enemies when we're trying to provide direction on something that staff is going to come back with, and sometimes get to the point where, through our own desire to see something positive, actually restrict the ability of something positive to come back. So I can say when this comes to council, I'll support this, but I think actually the original motion would have been fine because of a couple of reasons. First, it does give an amount of time, not just for staff, but actually for us as members of council to consult with stakeholders as well. We are certainly free to have those conversations with individuals like Ms. Rogers and Ms. Dunn. I had a communication from the former director of the London Abused Women's Centre, Ms. Walker, this morning wanting to talk about this. And at that point, I was only just looking at the report myself. So I think we do have time. I think the staff can consult, but I worry about when we start doing very specific stakeholder consultations, and I've seen this repeated in a number of bylaws. Mr. Katolik will laugh when I say it started in 2018 when I wanted to bring forward a tow truck bylaw regulation, but I've seen it on the graphic flyers, I've seen it on the renovictions. We sometimes get over prescriptive and in fact end up doing 2 or 3 or 4 processes of public participation meetings. I think if we have the PPM first and get that feedback, we can then either provide directions to amend, or we can provide a referral back with some really clear directions out of that public feedback. I think if we get too far ahead of prescribing what should come forward before the PPM, we actually do create that cycle of loop back, loop back, loop back. And so certainly I agree with Councillor Pelosa's point. If we vary too much, we go right back to square one. But based on the feedback we hear from the public and stakeholders in the PPM, we can actually really sort of fine tune a referral back. And so we don't have to start over because they may be smaller amendments rather than a major course correction. So I understand where all colleagues are on wanting some more information on this. I don't think that anything we're doing today is going to put us on railroad tracks where we can't make a left or a right turn off of and go a different direction. But I do understand the caution about that because it can actually set us back over and over again, restarting. And I'd rather not do 3 or 4 or however many tow truck public participation meetings we had before that one got finalized. We saw it on the renovictions, multiple delegation requests on consent and then public meeting and then another public meeting. So I think it's really an opportunity for us to take our time, letting staff move ahead with a draft bylaw with some consultation with stakeholders, and then are doing some of the work ourselves to do some consultation, listening to what the public feedback is, and then being really tight on a referral back to any changes we want to see when that draft comes forward. Or choose not to support it at all and do nothing, which is also an option that we could ultimately choose to go. So, like I said, I'll support this. I understand where the concerns are. I just don't want us to be overly prescriptive at this early stage as to what we think the results should be, because I think we all need more time to do some consulting and gather some information ourselves.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Trusso, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to, while it's fresh in everybody's mind through the chair, I want to really agree with the last point that the deputy mayor made, and that is we shouldn't be overly prescriptive about it, because if we are, this is going to be towards the end of the year of 2025. So we get one shot at doing this. If we decide we want to send this back to another public participation meeting, we're in an election year, and that's going to be on us really soon. So I want to make sure that we keep all of our options open, which is why I really would like to either have the options language in there, as was stated by Steph. I don't think that's prescriptive, but I do think that the specific prescription that the public participation meeting be about this particular version of this bylaw needs to come out. Otherwise, we will find ourselves in Q3 with this dilemma that we always have, which is, do we have to have another public participation meeting? we can avoid that entire conundrum if we just take that language out or make it explicit that there'll be options. So I'm not sure exactly at this point, through the chair, how the motion is written, but if that language about we'll hold a public participation meeting about the attached bylaw, I think that has to come out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I believe staff had already addressed this, but just to confirm that those options would be worked on in the interim between now and a public participation meeting, and they would be part of an options report, I believe is how Mr. Katolik phrased it.
Thank you. And through the chair, the recommendation before you is no different than the recommendation of all the other continuous improvement processes we undertake when we look at a variety of different bylaws. So I respectfully disagree with Councillor Trosso's that we need prescriptive language to look at options, because when we do community consultation, there may be options that come up that we're not even aware of. We'll learn something during these consultations. And therefore, we might look at another option. This is not something new that the City of London is looking at doing that no other municipality in Ontario is doing. I've listed in the report other municipalities that have gone down that route. So we do have best practices throughout Ontario, and we are always consulting with other municipalities to see how those best practices are working in consultation with implementing your strategic plan.
Okay, thank you for the response. Okay, Councillor Trosso, go ahead. You have about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, and what you just said was fine. Could the clerk please put the motion as it now stands on the board? Because I'm hearing some dissonance here in terms of what is being agreed to on the floor and what's in the text of the motion as I recall it. Could you put the actual text of the motion we'll be voting on the floor on the screen so we can all see it?
Okay, I believe it's up on the screen now. Can you see it?
No,
Okay. Would you like me to read it out?
I'd really appreciate it.
Does the clerk want to read it out or no? Okay, I'm going to pass it over to the clerk to read out. Go ahead.
The motion that's on the floor right now is an amendment, and it reads that the motion be amended to add a new Part C to read as follows. The Civic Administration be directed to consult with stakeholders with respect to this matter and report the findings at the CAPS meeting coinciding with the future public participation meeting.
Yeah, so Part B is still part of the motion? Through the chair?
Through the chair, that was the original motion. We're dealing with the amendment right now.
So is Part B part of the motion we're voting on?
Okay, so right now we are on C, which is an amendment to add another clause. So we would have to vote on this to amend the motion, but B is still part of the main motion, yes.
Okay, so if I think C improves, so I'll speak to C then. C improves the overall lot of things, but I think it still conflicts with B. So when we amend it, I am going to ask that B come out or be called separately, because I think that conflicts with C, because B talks about a public participation meeting on a very, very particular bylaw. But I'm okay with C.
Okay. Do we have any other speakers to C, which is the amendment? Not seeing any. I'll open this for voting, and then afterwards I'll pass it back to Councillor Ferrer.
Councillor Trosso?
I'm voting yes on C.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 3-0.
Okay, I pass the chair back over to Councillor Ferrer.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we are now on the motion as amended. Councillor, just a second. All right, you have 2 minutes on the main motion remaining, so you can go ahead, Councillor Trosso.
Yeah, so could the clerk please read B?
Yes, I will have the clerk read Part B for the motion.
Part B of the main motion reads, "A public participation meeting be held at a future meeting of the Community and Protective Services Committee to present an amendment to the business licensing bylaw to license body rub attendants."
Counselor?
Yeah, so that's my exact point. In fact, I think C is actually contrary to B, because C is much broader, B is much more limited. B is exactly the kind of language that we should be avoiding. And I think this whole motion would be okay if you strike that last little piece of B. But to leave B the way it's in there and then have C, it's just confusing. Again, I don't want to leave it to a ruling from the chair at the public participation meeting in October or November, or September, what's going to happen. So I really think that B needs to be taken out or fixed, because you've got a conflict here. And we need to be looking ahead and trying to avoid procedural quagmires ahead of time.
Thank you, Counselor.
So I would look to the chair.
Sorry, Counselor, I cut you off there. Go ahead.
I would look to somebody's guidance in terms of how we can fix that, because I think B is we're going to have a public participation meeting about a very, very particular bylaw, and C is what everybody else has been talking about in terms of it being broader and non-prescriptive.
Thank you, Counselor. Just a second. Okay, Counselor, I don't necessarily see B as contrary to C. However, I have asked the clerk to pull B out so you can, so we can vote on it separately from the other parts of the motion.
Well, okay, that's fine, but I'd like to amend B then to take out that last subclause.
Okay, that's an amendment to amend B to take out the last subclause. Can you be specific on what part you'd like to pull?
Screen. Everything after we hold the public participation with respect to an amendment to the bylaw, and stop there, because everything after that talks about a particular amendment to the bylaw. And I think for clarity, that should come out.
Point of order.
Okay, I have a point of order. Councilor McAllister, state your point.
So dissecting this amendment right now, I think this is a bit out of order. I think from what staff have said and what we're trying to get to, would B not be appropriately amended to just say a future meeting of the Community and Protective Services Committee to present potential amendment with an S in brackets, just to reflect what staff have said?
Thank you. So you're recommending to add the word potential for the point of order?
Yes.
That's exactly right. That's what I was trying to say. I guess it would be hard to agree with me, but that's basically what I've been trying to get at. So yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. I would rule that that is not a point of order, Councillor, but I'm going to take that anyways. Councillor Trusso, if you want to make an amendment to add potential onto Part B, you can move that amendment.
Well, I think the way Councillor McAllister just stated it was nice, and I don't want to lose any of that language. So could you just repeat what you said? I like the potential part.
All right, Councillor, I'm going to go to Councillor McAllister to repeat once what he said.
Thank you, and through the chair. No, I was just trying to avoid a vote, which I think we can find the middle ground on. So the language that I would include is in B, at the future meeting of the Community and Protective Service Committee to present potential amendments, and then with amendments being in brackets, because don't know what's going to come forward, and just striking that "and" there. I just think rather than striking B, if we can just amend it slightly, I think that gets to where the councillor is trying to get to.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate the committee work at committee. I'm going to look for a seconder for your amendment. Okay, seconded by Counselor Trusso. That is a new speakers list. Now, I would say we did speak to this quite thoroughly already, but I will go to committee members first and then visiting members for any type of comments you'd like to make on this amendment. Okay, Counselor McAllister first, then Counselor Trusso.
Thank you through the chair. No, I'm just trying to reflect the sentiments of committee work we're doing, recognizing that staff have already acknowledged that options will be presented. This just perhaps spells it out a bit more clearly that any sort of PPM would not be as prescriptive and that it offers the potential for options to come forward for that PPM.
Thank you, Counselor. And Counselor Trusso.
Just so we're clear, I agree with everything that was just said, and I think it's really significant that we're doing this at committee and not at council, and I really appreciate the give and take here. And just for the public that's trying to follow this, if I may, all options will be on the table when we have this public participation meeting. So I really want to encourage members of the community to really think about what they see as the future of this bylaw and how they would like to see it go. And thank you, everybody. And I think we have a good motion.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, looking for any other comments, questions? No? Okay, let's vote on this amendment. Call on the question.
Trusso votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 3-0.
Okay, so now we have to vote on the motion as amended. As I said before, we did have a pretty thorough discussion, but I am going to go one more round to see if visiting members, committee members first, then visiting members have any comments or questions. I see none. Okay, let's call the question.
Trusso votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 3-0.
Okay, thank you, members of committee and visiting members, for that discussion. That leaves us to, or that is the end of items for direction. I'm on the next section, deferred matters, additional business. I have none. That moves us to confidential items. There is one, 6.1 litigation, potential litigation, solicitor, client privilege, a matter pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, and advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose and directions and instructions to officers and employees or agents of the municipality. So I'm looking for a motion to go into camera. Moved by Councillor McAllister, seconded by, I'll second that. Okay, calling the vote. We're calling the vote now.
I vote yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 3-0.
Okay, I'll give everybody a moment to leave chambers, and then we'll lock everything up, and then we will have that one item in discussion for in camera. Okay, we are back in the open session. I'm going to go to my vice chair to report out on the closed session.
Thank you. Reporting out from confidential session, just noting that we did go into closed session approximately around 2:10, I believe, and the progress was made on the matter for which we went into confidential session.
Thank you. Okay, that leaves us to the last item, that's adjournment. Looking for a mover. Moved by Councilor McAllister, seconded by Councilor Trusso. Hand vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We're adjourned. Thank you.